That I think that this verse from Surah An-Nahl verse from 59 to 69.
Which verse?
From Surah An-Nahl 51 to 69. Abasa wa tawalla. No,
عبس وتولى.
Sorry.
من 59 حتى ال 61 في سورة النحل.
51 to
No, 59 to 61.
59.
Which reads?
Yes. Surah Nahl verse 59.
That's right.
Yeah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وإذا بشر أحدهم بالأنثى ظل وجهه مسودا وهو كظيم يتوارى من القوم من سوء ما بشر به أيمسكه على هون أم يدسه في التراب ألا ساء ما يحكمون الذين لا يؤمنون بالآخرة مثل السوء ولله المثل الأعلى وهو العزيز الحكيم. The translation is, and when to one of them is conveyed the tidings of the birth of a female, his face darkens with inward suppressed grief. He hides himself from the people because of the bad news he had. Shall he keep it in spite of disgrace, or shall he bury it in the dust? Verily, evil is that which they judge. The state of those who do not believe in the hereafter is evil, while all sublime attributes belong to Allah, and He is the Mighty, the Wise.
Yes, what is the question?
His question was, I think that this verse did apply on people before Islam. Why do we see the same attitude today in the Arab Muslim countries?
This means that he was wrong to think that it applied to the people before Islam. Yes. There is expressed rejection of females by the male, which is suppressed by the society, by the progress in civilization, etc., etc. But it has an undercurrent of the same continuously. And the malish hegemony of everything and desire for overlordship of women is not a prerogative of the Arabs alone. Although the Jewish people and the Christians many a time look down upon the Arabs as having mean thoughts and mean attitudes towards women. But this is a universal propensity of man, which is found everywhere. So the Holy Quran decries it and rejects it. At times, the Holy Quran speaks of actual burying alive of daughters when they were born to the Arabs before Islam. But that was carrying this tendency too far. As far as the desire to get rid of female and to have male children is concerned, that is everywhere. And even in the West you read advertisements regarding the choice of a male child. If you use this and you try this medicine and that medicine or that system, you can have male issues born to you. And in India and Pakistan and the third world countries, this is just commonplace. Among the Hindus, it's very pronounced. They hate to father only daughters. They would much rather have only male offspring rather than any female. But if they are blessed only with daughters, their attitude is not less ferocious than the attitude of the Arabs in pre-Islamic days. So don't blame Arabs alone, poor things. Their habit has been exposed by the Quran because it was revealed at a time when this folly among the men of Arabia had reached its height, or shall we say lowest depth. It's the only reason why Arabs are mentioned. But here, this verse does not speak of Arabs. It speaks of humans, men everywhere. Where does it say the Arabs do it? Right? Now, in case of the Arabs, I made some investigation, because such things are always related everywhere, more pronouncedly to the Arabs than to anybody else. Particularly the Western media and the Orientalists, etc. They are especially harsh on the Arab people to prefer male over the female. But I have investigated and I found that the fault lies not with Arab men but Arab women. It is the Arab women who are responsible for this folly, not men. Because the mothers in Arabia crave so much for male issues, and they practically worship the male and prefer their male issue over their daughters. So, what should I say? The word fails me to describe this, the ugliness of this attitude. They practically worship male issues and reject their own daughters. That is why in many families, the boy is raised as a hero and the daughters are trained only to serve the cause and be proud of this boy. The fault lies with the women, Arab mothers. So, that may have been a heresy of the past pre-Islamic conduct of the Arabs. In the final analysis, men could be responsible, but men of old, the men who were ignorant, they behaved so cruelly and so obnoxiously towards their own women that treatment is not yet forgotten by the Arab mothers. So they continuously prefer males over females. So that, I think, is the only reason why people highlight Arabs whenever they speak on the subject of preference of men over women. Now, incidentally, you being an Arab, do you think that I'm right in my analysis, or you would like to correct me in some ways?
No, this phenomenon is quite common.
Huh?
Yes.
Correct? You agree?
Yes.
I don't know what your reaction is to this.
I agree to some.
Overall, huh?
Yes.
But where you disagree, let me know, so that we'll discuss it. No problem.
Things has slightly
First
changed.
translate it,
Oh, sorry.
and then we'll discuss this as an open issue. And in the end, I invited you to discuss this question openly and frankly. If you think there are parts in my statement which are not entirely right, if it is to be corrected, I would benefit from your disagreement, please.
Hazur, it's not actually a disagreement, but in some country like in North Africa, they've got too much influence from the West. So this is why they have lost all the Arabic or traditional values.
No, that is a different story altogether. But when you talk of the Arabs in general, you talk of the mainland of Arabia and also Egypt. In Egypt, it is still very pronounced, obnoxiously pronounced. So I have met many Egyptian families where males are, absolutely idolized.
In our country, especially in the villages, the situation is the same. Same, unfortunately.
Yes, unfortunately.
Even in the city in Germany, still in the Turkish families, they have this really strong that the boy is the perfect person and the girl has to run away. I mean,
so it's not the Arabs who are to be blamed for this alone. The Turkish character also is similar to the Arabs in this respect, but this, as I told you, is a universal tendency. As I informed you, Hindus treat their women even worse than what the Arabs ever did. After the death of their husbands, the widows preferred to burn themselves to death, because the life of drudgery and misery and disgrace which they see ahead of them after the death of their husbands is so terrible that they would much rather die than live such a life. So I am speaking of this because the West, unfortunately, only relates this tendency to Islam and to Muslim countries. It is not true. It's everywhere the same tendency, even here in the West, but it's suppressed and kept under its right place. I mean, kept at its right place by covers and by civilization and this and that. But deep inside they also prefer males over the females. You made a good gist of it.
Yes.
Another thing which proves my point regarding my observation on the West is that here women were deprived of all fundamental rights by the turn of the century. They could not inherit anything, they could not possess anything, they themselves were possessions. So to say that the West is far more civilized and has always been, under the influence of Christianity, superior in its attitude to women is absolutely false. That's just incidental. Some people should still be under the false impression that Islam is responsible for everything bad. Islam is responsible for rehabilitating the honor of women. And the ignorance of the Arabs was responsible for all that is being said. Please.